MUTV and the Marquette Wire, this is the 2018 MUSG Debate.
Good evening, I'm Phil Pinarski. Welcome to a live debate between the presidential and executive vice presidential candidates for Marquette University student government. The MUSG elections for the upcoming year will be held on March 27th, and tonight we hope to help you make an informed decision. Whoever is elected will be responsible for leading the Student Senate, helping allocate funds for student organizations, and representing the student voice to top university administration. The president and executive vice president run as a ticket. One ticket is Erin Murphy for president and Joshua Steinfeld-Science for executive vice president. Murphy is a junior and a senator for the College of Engineering. She is also chair of the Student Life Committee and sits on the Budget Committee. Steinfeld-Science is also a junior. He is a senator for the Evans Scholar House and sits on the University Assessment and Student Organization Funding Committees. On the other ticket is Meredith Gillespie, who's running for president, and Valerie Del Campo for executive vice president. Gillespie is a junior and is currently the outreach vice president for MUSG. She's chair of the Student Organizations Committee and sits on the Student Organization Funding Committee, as well as the Diversity, Inclusion, and Social Justice Committee. Del Campo is also a junior. She is currently the communications vice president for MUSG and has worked on sexual assault campaigns on campus, as well as the Title IX Town Hall Forum in February. Now let's go to our moderator for tonight's debate. Morgan Hughes is the executive opinions editor for the Marquette Wire. Morgan?
Thank you, Phil. Hello, candidates, and welcome. The rules for tonight's debate are simple. It will be divided into two segments, moderated questions, and an audience Q&A. For the first segment, I will ask a question, and each ticket will have 2 minutes to respond. Either or both candidate on the ticket can answer, and the tickets will alternate who answers first. When you hear this sound, it means you have 10 seconds left and should wrap up. The questions are my own and have not been provided to either campaign. There will be no rebuttals, but the tickets will each have 2 minutes for closing remarks following the audience Q&A. To begin, each ticket will have 2 minutes for an opening statement. By coin toss, Meredith and Valerie will give their opening statement first. Go ahead.
Hi everyone, thank you so much for coming out tonight and for tuning in at home. My name is Meredith Gillespie, a current junior in the College of Arts and Sciences. I study international affairs and French and minor in Arabic. I'm also the current OVP for Marquette University Student Government, and I'm really excited to be running with my friend Val. We want to focus our term and our campaign on every aspect of the Marquette student, and that includes a very holistic experience. That includes mental health, engagement in Milwaukee, issues such as sexual health and sexual assault prevention, and academic opportunities. We are so passionate about our platform. However, we ultimately want to serve students and look forward to creating a healthier, stronger, and more collaborative relationship with student organizations.
Hi, my name is Valerie Del Campo. I'm a junior in the College of Communications, studying corporate communications with a double minor in public relations and business administration. For the past year, I've been involved with Marquette as a communications vice president. And to go into greater detail, our platform focuses on 4 main points. So one is the academics, two is student experience, student resources, and then social justice and community engagement kind of fall into 1 point. And then under those several points, we have ideas. And those include creating more options for upper level theology classes, offering languages such as sign language, Arabic, majors and minors, and then also creating more 24-hour study spaces. We are working on partnering with local businesses on the south and west side of Milwaukee to get students interested, involved in the Marquette community and as well as the greater Milwaukee community. We're also looking to create more service opportunities based in Milwaukee. And lastly, we want to improve the current Title IX training and the counseling center. Overall, we are 2 women passionate about Marquette and the Milwaukee community. We would be honored to serve the student body and care so deeply about the experience of every student at Marquette. To us, MUSG should be inclusive of every student, and we are excited to be a part of that changing culture.
Thank you. You guys can give your opening statements. All right.
Well, thank you everyone for coming out. I'm Erin Murphy. I'm a bioelectrical engineering major looking to go into systems and control engineering. I currently work in mechanical maintenance for the dorms as well as in the environmental health and safety department doing audits on equipment throughout the buildings. One of the goals for my career is to develop a new method of statistical analysis by layering information other people don't see as comparable. This also transcends into my work in Senate as well as approaching problems I see around campus. When approaching two different groups with conflicting viewpoints, I often try and find things they haven't thought of before in order to find common ground. Josh and I have spent the past year and a half in Senate learning the ins and outs. We joined at an interesting time, however, where although now people joke that Josh has one of the most extensive comprehensions of the constitutional knowledge in Senate, there was a stark learning curve due to the communication at the time.
Hello, I'm Joshua. I'm an accounting major in the College of Business Administration with a concentration in taxation. When most people think of taxes, they think confusing, complex, and bureaucratic. These are all ways that I would really describe the current student organization funding process, and it's something that I would really like to work to change. In terms of my tax career, I am currently working to develop tax software with some engineers and computer science majors at Marquette in order to more easily facilitate global commerce and tax reporting. I believe that these things could definitely be implemented into the student organizational funding process.
Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, this past year, we have had a good president, Ben, who's been able to rebrand MUSG and cultivate a more positive culture. We hope to build upon this new functionality of student government by bringing in the student voice and maximizing the full potential of change that we could have.
Thank you. We will start right away with questions then. So for the first question, the university has committed resources to building a diverse campus, including launching the initiative to become a Hispanic-serving institution. But Marquette's demographic data indicate that the number of students of color on campus is far below regional and national population figures. And as of fall 2017, almost 70% of the undergraduate student population was white. Given this, how will your administration ensure that diversity continues to grow and that minority students on campus are sufficiently included and represented in the campus culture? Meredith and Valerie, we started with you for opening statements, so Erin and Josh, we'll start with you.
All right. Well, yes, the Hispanic Serving Institution Initiative was first presented to us last year in Senate. It was proudly one of the moments in Senate where we had the biggest forum of concerned students giving us their 2 cents of, yes, we want this seen throughout the university as we go. We have made great improvements with HSI over the past year. We just hired Oscar Silva as a second hand to take on facilitating Hispanic students and showing them their resources throughout campus. Although he does say that we could do more to integrate, not assimilate, but also take the time to reach out to the students that aren't typically a part of other communities to say, come here and join us. Anything?
In terms of reaching out to the Hispanic communities, I think that this is great. That diversity is something that always helps and supports communities, especially as they grow and develop. And so in a educational setting, diversity is vital. And so there is considerable good to come from the Hispanic Student Initiative, and that is definitely something we need to attribute more resources and focus on. But there are many other ways that we can continue to grow that. Do you want to say something else?
Yes. In our initiatives, we plan to focus on addressing student body as a whole, not necessarily also speaking with groups and seeing what their needs can be, but approaching us as we are all Marquette students and breaking down the barriers that are sometimes held between different ethnicities.
Thank you. Meredith and Valerie?
I can begin. Okay, so I'm the Outreach Vice President for Marquette University right now, as I said before, and part of my job is to advise the Diversity, Inclusion, and Social Justice Committee. And so a lot of that has introduced me to faculty members who are going through the efforts of becoming an HSI initiative or HSI serving institution. But I've also been interacting a lot with student groups that advocate for different cultures or become a home for students who are of color. And so Val and I have talked a lot about how we're going to include that in our campaign. And a lot of it has to do with working with faculty like Ms. Jackie Black, who is helping on the HSI initiative right now. I know that our student population right now has about 17%, I believe, of Hispanic serving for our Hispanic population, but that can be increased, especially because the Milwaukee area has a very high Hispanic population. And so some things that we're doing is that because to advocate for diversity on campus and advocate for students to come to Marquette, we have to have the resources for here at Marquette for them to excel and to thrive here at Marquette. So things that we're doing are looking into diverse theology options and diverse language options to make sure that students, when they come here, have the ability to study whatever they like. And so that looks into our theology options for students being able to study theology and religious courses outside of the Christian faith, and then also looking at different languages that they can study as well.
Yeah. And as for on campus, I'm actually currently working on a diversity and inclusion initiative, and that focuses on people of color on campus. And some of the main things that we talked about were how to include and how to break barriers between MUSG and the student or cultural student organizations on campus. And that starts with just, if we have to meet with them 100% of the way, then that's what we have to do, just to make sure that they are included and their voices are heard.
Thank you. All right, question 2. So both of your platforms address sexual assault as a primary campus concern. Do you feel that the current resources allocated to address this epidemic on campus are sufficient and effective? And what are the specific measures your administration will take to combat this threat? Valerie?
So Valerie and I right now are on the Ad-Hoc committee for sexual assault through MUSG. So we helped plan the Title IX Forum on sexual assault. That was a few weeks ago. And we've been working with the Title IX office as well as other students on campus in regards to sexual assault and sexual harassment. So what we've noticed for students right now is that there are a lot of resources in regards to Title IX if students choose to report sexual assault or sexual harassment, because that is their choice. But right now, the information regarding sexual assault in Title IX isn't necessarily very accessible for students. So they're not able to really know their rights or know the resources on campus. And so that's something that we're looking into, is making sure that all students, if they were to be put into that situation and they want to go through the reporting process, that they have those resources at their fingertips and that they know that they're supported by the administration. So just improving that communication between students and administration.
Yeah, also too, part of it is kind of making sure that the RAs on campus too have the right resources and training that they have in order to properly communicate with the students that they have on their floors, and making sure that they also have the resources that they need. So,
thank you.
All right. Well, like Meredith and Val, I'm also on the Ad-Hoc committee for Title IX, along with 2 other senators who were at the other meetings and planned the forum. I would say I learned through the forum that there are a lot of resources in place to provide both parties of a sexual assault case the resources they need to follow through legally. I think a greater change that needs to happen is more in the internalization of student population as a whole, to understand the perspective of a victim as well as a person who might be accused wrongfully. Although there are less reports there's less false accusations of sexual assault than there are people who actually fake their death. That's a common statistic that not many people know. One production that I really loved was Student Body this spring. They so perfectly hit the tone of the conflict, of the interactions of a group of friends trying to make a decision about how to proceed with sexual assault. I really hope to see more plays like that produced by our student body in order to evoke emotions such as that. Furthermore, more than 50% of sexual assault cases happen within the first 3 months of school. So we would like to focus on orientation training and really integrating that at the beginning of the year so that people can start off on the right foot, as well as providing RAs with more resources to help the students that come to them needing help. Oftentimes I've heard RAs say, I don't feel equipped to deal with this type of tragedy, and they're not prepared enough, so we need to sit down and talk to them. This is also one of the loose ends that's left over from switching over to co-ed floor policies, is what happens if you have a female and she does not necessarily want to go to her male RA and vice versa. Also, the statistics for reporting of sexual assault have gone down massively in the past 4 years. And
That's 2 minutes.
thank you.
Thank you. So for the third question, so one of the executive vice president's main roles is to chair the Student Organization Funding Committee, which has been controversial in the past. What steps will you take to maintain transparency and accessibility, both with student organization funding and with MUSG generally? Please be specific. You guys can start.
That is actually the crux of what I would like to do with the Student Organization Funding Committee, that I do not feel that there is substantial transparency or accountability in terms of it. One of the big issues that I see with it is the fact that with 2 different student organization committees, everything else being held equal, the allocation amounts can be wildly different. I would like to make the procedures much more consistent so that when it comes to an org submitting their request, that they can be confident that they're going to be given a fair and unbiased allocation, and that all of the clubs are given the resources that they truly need, because that is so vital. I would also like to make sure that we have these procedures in place so that we can better explain to the students our rationale for our decision making, and and bring them into our decision making so that they know how to best request, how they're supposed to fill out these forms. Because it, again, as I said in the intro, that it's such a confusing and complicated topic that to have someone from the outside trying to work on these forms alone, they won't get very far. I've already been working with several students on their committee apps, which were due today. Hopefully everyone has gotten them in before midnight, and that I would like to see that changed. Furthermore, I would love to see, this is something that I would really like to work on, that pushing back the fall allocation for bulk funding to closer to the fall semester, because currently we're 6 months out from some of the events people are requesting money for, and it's virtually impossible to get effective proof of costs and planning down for those events this far out. And so I would like to push our allocation meetings much closer to the semester, if meeting either like the week before school or something, so that we can actually give those allocations. Thank you.
You guys?
Yeah, so a lot of what our platform is making sure that we are accessible to the student organizations on campus. And the majority of our students are involved in a student organization in one way or form, and that's kind of how they get started on campus and getting acculturated to Marquette. And the one thing that we would like to improve is making sure that, like what Josh said, is making sure that all of these organizations have what they need. And this student org funding is a very complicated thing, and especially like with me trying to learn it and making sure that everything on it is okay moving forward, and talking with Ali, the current executive vice president, there are a lot of things moving forward that we can improve on, such as making sure that people know what's on the student funding application, know what they can't actually apply for, and making sure that we are being transparent, but it's also kind of just communicating with each student organization on campus and making sure that they have the resources that they need and they know who to contact within MUSG to make sure that they're comfortable with coming to us in the first place. Because I feel like a lot of the problem is that student orgs aren't really comfortable with coming to MUSG in the first place with all of their problems that they have with student org funding. And I think it's breaking that barrier between MUSG and the student orgs on campus to make sure that they get the resources that they need.
Just shortly too, there's also a very, very low reimbursement rate right now for students. So when students get funding from MUSG, they have to pick up checks from MUSG to get reimbursed for that. And a lot of people don't end up picking up their checks, and that money ends up going back into the MUSG Reserve Fund, which we don't really see as very fair, because that money is supposed to go to student organizations. And so we're looking to roll over that money that it doesn't get reimbursed into the next semester, so student organizations can have that money fully for them and not just in our reserve fund.
Thank you. So campus free speech has been a contentious topic in recent years, particularly at Marquette. And considering speech's divisive potential, campus arguments can quickly devolve into intolerance on either side. How will you use your office to promote respectful dialogue across all campus issues? You guys let me get, sorry.
We were just discussing this before, and free speech is something that we're both extremely passionate about. From someone who has studied the U.S. Constitution a lot, and Valerie and I have talked about this a lot, Free speech from whatever side it may be on campus is extremely important. That is just outside of any political ideology, what anyone may think. Unless it's speech that is hurtful to others, it should be free on campus. And so we're big proprietors of that, and I think ways that we can go about that is ensuring that if there are community groups or student groups on campus that tend to have conflict, to bring those students together and find ways to collaborate with them. Another way is we've just been trying to ensure that every part of our platform, every part of our campaign and what we want to do with our term is focused on students. And MUSG as a whole should not be a politically charged organization. It should be serving students regardless of what their political ideology is. And so we're trying to go about our platform and our campaign in a way that is inclusive of all thoughts, whether it be conservative or liberal, and making sure that they are safe on campus. Because if one person is not equal on campus, then no one on campus is equal. And so we're trying to be proprietors of that. Do you have anything to add?
You got it. You're
Awesome,
good.
thank you. All right, for you.
Yeah, so a key part of our campaign is emphasizing the desire to seek out a diversity of thought among all students and integrate the opinions and address them within Senate. We're fortunate enough in Senate to have a structure where we can vote on ideas. That way we can bring up any points that students see fit and address them. Currently, I'm consulting web developers to actually create a campus-wide app. So there we hope to have more sufficient supply of information to students regarding everything from meal plan menus to actually having the Wire articles and MUTV and other different areas of the app that can also connect the rest of the student body.
For us, free speech and communication in general is extremely important for both for administering anything and running pretty much anything. Part of our application is pursuing student org to student org communication in order to better help them collaborate. In the current system, if a student organization wants to collaborate with another, they have to reach out to them directly and kind of do that route. This would put the tools in their hands already. Furthermore, in terms of freedom of speech, these are extremely important for students to have the rights to express themselves and knowing that they can. And we just would like to make sure that those conversations are happening and happening in a proper method, that people aren't taking actions that do not reflect our Jesuit values and are making sure that we keep the dialogues open, because when we close ourselves off, that's how we get dug in, that's how we stop actually cooperating. We need to work more to build these bridges and build these lines of communication so that we can ensure a diverse and inclusive community. Thank you.
Perfect, thank you. Student life outside the classroom is important to the college experience, which each of your platforms address. But how do your platforms represent the student body's academic needs and interests as well? You guys will begin.
Would you like to start? Yeah, go for it.
Well, one of the big needs that I have seen and have actually been starting to work on is a student tuition increase referendum. It's a piece of legislation that came up as a result of students having concerns about how the university is using their funds appropriately and efficiently, most importantly, and making sure that students have a voice in those matters. Would you like to?
Yes. We would also like to continue improvement of the response to class surveys with academics. Students oftentimes have a lot of great input about how a class can be switched around or tweaked to better fit the needs of students. If there was a person more specifically dedicated to hearing out these needs besides just the teachers themselves hearing their feedback, it would be more beneficial for class turnaround. One thing that's common between both of our campaigns is expanding theology courses. While Meredith and Val might elaborate on theirs, we would like to diversify the 1000 level theology course, splitting it up to 2 different options. We find that when you try and combine both sides, people who have had experience in Catholic schools growing up and people who have no experience in Catholic schools, there's often a distance, and you would hope there would be a common ground of communication, but ideally, I would like to see this happen in a 2000 level course where people can have a class more specifically dedicated to their backgrounds for the 1000 level course.
That by trying to sit into that middle ground, they lose both groups. One group which feels that it is being held back by other students, and the other group which isn't really sure and really doesn't have the foundations to be at the level that some of the introductory is at.
We'd also like to work more to establish classes that are cross majors, like our current Da Vinci class in engineering, that isn't quite required for it, isn't established as an engineering
Thank you, Erin and
elective
Josh.
yet.
That's 2 minutes.
Thank you.
Sorry.
No, you're totally yeah, so one of the things that we've been talking about is creating more 24-hour study spaces on campus, and especially with the Wild Commons being built, there's definitely an area there that is untouched with making 24-hour spaces if this is supposed to be a place that is open to everyone, and that would be a really cool place to start at. But then also looking at other academic buildings and where we can improve, but then also making sure that every student has a place, especially if the library is packed during finals and midterms. It's really hard to find a place on campus to study. So.
Yep. And going forward with our personal platform when it comes to theology credits, we're looking at our 2000 level theology credits. And so there are a few different religion courses on world religions, such as a 4000 level Islam class, classes on Judaism, Hinduism, and those don't count for your 2000 level theology class. And we think that it's a part of a holistic Marquette experience for students to be able to seek out that and receive credit for that when it comes to graduation requirements. Other things that we're looking into is languages, as I said before. I'm an Arabic minor, but there's not an Arabic major on campus, and we have the resources to reach that Arabic major, and that would really draw in a lot of students, and so we're looking into that. And that's also including sign language as well, so we're looking into sign language minor and majors. But overall, that's just our platform, but we want to make sure that faculty and students have that connection, and so we're going to make sure that we reach out to faculty and reach out to student organizations and see what they need and want academically. And that's the biggest part, because although our platform is important to us, if students want something and need something done, that comes first.
Thank you. The recent school shooting in Parkland, Florida has reignited the American debate on guns. Several proposals have come from the debate, including one to arm faculty. Considering the divisiveness of the issue, how will you use the MUSG office to defend all students' sense of security on campus? We'll start with you guys.
I think it's a conversation that needs to happen with all the students on campus, and it goes back to the ideals of MUSG as a whole. So right now, MUSG can be very internally focused, and we can sometimes be an echo chamber of sorts and kind of go off of each other's thoughts, whereas we're supposed to be representing the whole student body. And so I think it's a conversation that we need to bring with the entire campus. Once again, our personal political views aren't conducive to this type of political office, just because it's not really a political office, it's just representing students and being that mouthpiece for students to faculty. And so I think what we can do as MUSG is just give students that platform to discuss that problem and make sure that faculty listen to them. And so whatever is happening around our country, we need to make sure that every single aspect, every single angle is given the opportunity to be equal on campus. And so whether students are for or against any type of gun law, that needs to be discussed on campus at length and at full, because we want to make sure that every opinion of students is accounted for.
Yeah, and I think going off of that, it is creating that open dialogue and not making one side more kind of just taking over the conversation with the other, because like we said, everybody's voice on campus matters, and everybody should be aware of other opinions. And I think it's very important to have a conversation rather than like a debate, like this one. But yeah, having an open conversation with all the students on campus is very important, and just making sure that every voice is heard, and especially when it comes to safety, that's very important. And having everybody, you know, if they wouldn't feel comfortable otherwise, like that's a really good resource to have as MUSG and as a resource to the student body.
And The Wire did just put out an article that says that DRs, for instance, are not trained on what happened if there was gun violence. So just looking into trainings for people who are at the front of buildings and making sure that students are kept safe. Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Thank you. Erin and Josh?
You slipped in what I was going to say at the last minute, how the RAs should probably, or not RAs, excuse me, desk receptionists need to have more sufficient training as far as safety. I find it interesting, there was a proposal a few weeks ago that I heard of to provide a locker space for students to house their guns off campus. That way they'd be more in a legal way. Working in mechanical maintenance, I do get to see a side of the student life that may not typically be voiced. I have seen guns be brought into the apartments, whether they're for trap shooting or recreational purposes, but looking into safety policies that we should have those resources for students to provide a more safe campus for students. Do you have anything else?
At the end of the day, whenever we're having conversations about these topics, one of the big things that I have found very beneficial with starting off these disagreements is to find our common ground. That at the end of the day, we are all on the same side. We all want to see an end to these terrible events, and that we all have, whether our solutions to the problems differ, we can all agree that we're on the same side. And that once we go from there, we can begin working more towards communicating with each other instead of building up those walls. We need to instead work with each other and talk so that we can come to a comprehensive solutions rather than shouting each other down and ending conversation, because that's how nothing winds up happening.
Thank you. So please provide a critique of the processes and efficacy of MUSG with specific examples and how you hope to improve. And Erin and Josh, we'll start with you again.
Okay. Well, for instance, a lot of the people on the executive board spread themselves very thin to fulfill their roles and let minute responsibilities let them aside. For instance, the LVP this previous year has failed to give us updates in a consistent manner as far as informing senators about the legislation that will be proposed beforehand. So I definitely, as a must in the next campaign, establish a more commutative distribution of materials to senators.
Furthermore, as far as a lot of our procedures go and day-to-day activities, there is virtually no transparency, in my opinion, in how we do things, not out of a nefarious desire to keep people out, but instead to out of a failure to reach out to students to and involve them in these dialogues and in these conversations and decisions.
Mm-hmm. One of our goals for this next year is the Forum for Concerned Students at Senate is almost never used. There's no one there except for the HSI initiative. Our goal is that that will not be the case this following year. There will at least be, let's say, 5 people voicing a concern every student meeting. That way they know that their voices are being heard and we can integrate them exactly into legislation that we will be writing and voting on.
And that really starts with our executive board reaching out to the students in terms of what are we working on this week. Because agendas and other things are created very close to our actual Senate meeting, there's almost no way to publicize the actual topics of our conversations for the following week. And so it is almost impossible to get students into those conversations. And that's something that we're very much so looking to change in all regards, in all processes of
That's 2
MUSG.
minutes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Meredith and Valerie?
Val and I have discussed a lot how right now there isn't a very good balance between the internal operations of MUSG and the external community around Marquette. Right now, MUSG can be very internally focused and kind of forget the role of being a representative for students on campus. So one of the things that we've talked about while meeting with student groups this week while campaigning is that student groups would really love to see senator representation at their meetings. And so we'd love to assign specific student organizations and divvy them up between all the senators and just have that consistent talk between student organizations and those senators. And so that for us would be a really great way for us to extend our reach and be more externally focused on the MUSG level while working with other students. Another part that we've been looking at is right now there are senator committees. I actually was the student organization committee chair when I was a freshman, and just looking at how those committees operate and making sure that they use their time wisely and effectively, and knowing that they're supposed to be representatives for students and also be reporters of those topics from students into the MUSG realm.
Yeah, and going off of that, the comm department, since I'm the communication vice president, the comm department definitely tries to get people to the Senate meetings, and we're trying to focus on what we can do to get people there, but it's very hard, especially when there is kind of this stigma around MUSG and it being kind of this scary place for people to approach. And part of that is kind of breaking down that barrier. And again, if we have to go out and go to these student organization meetings and meet with them 100% of the way rather than half of the way, then that's what we're going to do, especially if that kind of creates or kind of takes away the stigma around not being able to approach MUSG.
Yeah, and I think they alluded to this as well, but just increasing that transparency. So whether it's decisions from executive board meetings or decisions from senators, making sure we make that public to students and students can include themselves in that conversation.
Thank you. Each of your campaigns address multiple issues, but focus on one larger, more comprehensive goal. Meredith and Valerie, your campaign's main promise is to bolster mental health resources on campus, while Erin and Joshua, your primary promise is what you call the 3 A's: accessibility, accountability, and assessment. Please explain why these are the issues most valuable to your campaigns and what your specific steps will be to meet these promises. Meredith and Valerie?
So for both of us, mental health on campus is a very important initiative that we would love to tackle, especially because Senator Haggerty, if you guys know her, she has been doing a great job with trying to change the stigma around mental health and making sure that people on campus know that they're not alone. And we would love to continue that for next year and making sure that people have the right resources, but also know that there are resources out there for them. But we would also like to change like some of the things in the counseling center and making sure that they have more long-term ways of helping students, because mental health on campus isn't a short-term thing. It can't be solved in one session or let alone 6. So we would love to have those opportunities for counselors to be there or take on a student for the year and making sure that they get the help that they need.
Yeah, so 1 in 3 students right now 1 in 3 college students around the nation identify as having a mental illness. And so we put it as the most important part of our campaign because that affects a massive amount of our student population. And off of that statistic and versus what we have right now in the counseling center, there's a large disparity between the resources that we have. And Valerie alluded to this, but it's a very short-term solution right now, and we want it more long-term for those students. And so, I mean, that includes, as Valerie said, bolstering our counseling department, working with faculty as they build the Rec and Wellness facility, and making sure that that wellness center in the new facility has ample opportunity and ample room to serve the student population. So we're trying to work with faculty, work with students, and work with the current resources that we have, because it's really, really important to us and to the student body.
Thank you. Erin and Joshua?
All right. So the first one of the A's is accessibility. And making ourselves available to students consistently. As president, I would have office hours for any students to come to me, but I recognize that that's not always the most approachable situation. All year long in preparation for this role, I have been visiting as many student orgs as I can. I attend 5 student orgs regularly, and just talking with students in general that may be sitting in lunch areas, in study spaces, talking to the specific students' opinions about what they would like to see changed in the university. We recognize that not everyone is a part of a student org and goes to every meeting, so we can't reach them through that realm. We need to make ourselves personally available to each and every student that raises a voice that we can come to a proper solution.
In terms of assessment, the principle behind that is that no matter how well we are doing, there is always room for improvement. That we can always push ourselves to do better and more for the students, and that this is vital for how we view all of our issues, not just the immediate ones, not just the ones we see today. In terms of our platform, one of the big features of it that I think differs from our opponents is that we would not just like to see these implemented at MUSG, where I think that they are vital and would be great resources, but to expand this to hold them to the university, especially in terms of accountability, where we want the students to have a say in administrative level decisions. In terms of assessment at the administrative level, we would like to see more resources go towards the University Assessment Committee, which does a wonderful job of helping make sure that our academic programs are as rigorous and challenging as possible.
Lastly, accountability is something we highly value as holding Senate to a standard to address issues that are actually voiced by students.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, thank you, candidates. That concludes the moderated questions segment. Now we will begin the audience Q&A. As with the moderated questions, you will have 2 minutes to answer and will alternate who answers first. Our first audience question comes from Sarah Lipo. Sarah, go ahead.
Thank you. I know the president and the executive vice president work closely together to further goals. So I was wondering what both teams of people think that why they will work so well together to accomplish the goals you just listed.
Thank you, Sarah. Erin and Josh, this will go to you.
All right. I love that you asked that question. There's no one else on Senate that I'd rather be running with than Josh. Him and I are able to bounce ideas off each other and debate in a way where we, even if we don't hold a particular opinion, we think, hey, what if from this student's perspective, they have this issue. One thing I really like about Josh is that he likes to play devil's advocate and always likes to root out problems before they even happen. He's very detailed and procedure oriented, so I really appreciate that when I need a quick fact checker or someone to put in a more solidified plan when I can have the ideas and reach out to students.
And that's exactly it, that we're kind of two halves of a whole, that Erin is great at being very big picture, going over and jumping at all the opportunities and finding all the issues possible that can be tackled, and then bringing them to people's attention and saying, hey, this is a problem and this is something that really needs to be addressed. And she does a great job of reaching out to all the student organizations and being active across the whole campus. And in terms of, she's also, one thing that I greatly admire is that she's willing to admit when she's wrong. When she's presented with new information, then she's happy to say, oh, wow, that's an interesting way of looking at it. I didn't see it that way before, and is willing to accept the new information. And so it really makes it great to work with her in terms of all of those different regards and qualities. And we just make up a great team together by complementing each other's strengths and weaknesses.
Thanks. Thank you.
Thank you.
Meredith and Valerie?
I could go on for 15 minutes about Valerie. Valerie and I have worked together for the past year as executive board members for MUSG. And so we've had this really awesome opportunity just to intersect being friends and being colleagues. And we are really good at balancing that professional and that personal relationship. And we're just so excited to be running together. I can't imagine a better running mate than Valerie is. She's so detail-oriented and cares so much and so deeply about every student here at Marquette, but also has just this very, very holistic perspective of life and about the different experiences of students on campus. She's incredibly involved and is just so willing to sacrifice her time and her efforts for other people. And I couldn't imagine a better person to be helping to lead this university. I honestly, I just see her as someone who that I look up to personally, and that I know, especially as executive vice president, for someone that she'll have to lead a committee and lead different people. She's so good at leading people in a way that's not condescending or not demeaning. She sees people for who they are and accepts people for who they are. So she's a great leader, very detail-oriented, an incredible friend, awesome person. If you don't know her, you should get to know her.
Dang, I say all the same things about you. You took all things, but Meredith, just as a person, as a friend, she just makes sure that I'm doing okay personally. And a lot of the time I can kind of just like be in my head sometimes. And Meredith makes sure that I am open and 100% honest with her. And that's one thing that I love, and just something that I know that she would bring to anybody that she talks to and interacts with, and anybody that she comes into contact with. I know that all of them leaves that conversation feeling better and as a better person, because I know every time I have a conversation with Meredith, I do, and I have a whole new perspective on life. So as just a person, she's great.
Thank you.
Do you want me to say my name first, or?
Sure.
Okay, yeah. Hi. So I'm Dana Warren. Most people call me Tripp, senior in the College of Business Administration. So I have two things I want to ask you guys about. The first thing is, what are 3 very specific, actionable things that you would like to see accomplished should this be your administration? I know you've talked a lot of big ideas and stuff, but I'd really like to see concrete ways that you would get them accomplished. And the second thing is, regarding student referendums on issues such as capital projects that the university wants to accomplish, tuition increases, any sort of big academic expenditures that they're going to be increasing, stuff like that in your desks or what have you. How do you feel about those? And if you do feel that you're in favor of them, how would you like to see them implemented?
Thank you, Dana. Meredith and Valerie, we'll start with you.
Try to tackle this in 2 minutes. So three concrete things that we want to do right now is 24-hour study space. So that's something that we can implement. We're positive by final season. So getting buildings open for that, that's one thing. Another thing would be getting furniture in the library. That's a legislative thing that we're passing right now to get better furniture in the Memorial Library reading room. The third one is a partnership with the Urban Ecology Center. We've discussed that, and we've are ready to move forward with that. But just making sure that student resources are to be had at the Urban Ecology Center, and making sure that we have a partnership with them to have a more sustainable campus, but also to help interact with younger people in the community.
Yeah, and as for tuition increases and the master plan and all of that stuff that's happening on campus, obviously no student wants their tuition to be raised, but I think one big thing that Meredith and I have talked about is making sure that both the students and the administration have that communication with each other, and both people know what exactly is going on, even if it's just explaining to students why these increases are happening, or just being fully transparent on their plans. That's a big step forward, and making sure that students know why. And obviously it's going to be difficult, especially with these increases, but at the same time, I know the administration does have things to combat these increases, such as a scholarship fund that they're creating, and making sure that students don't really see that much of a difference.
Thank you. Right. Erin and Josh?
Okay, so if you're asking for specific things that will happen, parcel pending is currently in the MARC and is a sufficient way to pick up packages. It takes a phone call and installing the new system, and then people can get text to pick up their packages. It'll be simple, effective, and easy to obtain. Also, the vegan and kosher options in the dining halls is virtually inexistent. That needs to change. It's more due to a student survey and availability. I think if it was voiced that students would like those options more, they would be provided. Also, it's a kind of far-fetched goal, but this upcoming fall, there will not be an article in The Wire again about the conflict between Marquette for Life and empowerment, and the vandalism that may occur between the memorial, and finding a common ground between both groups so that we can stop having the same argument every single year. I mentioned the campus app. I hope to have that completed over the summer. Josh?
In terms of my agenda, my first actionable thing would be SOF reform. I would really like to see those things changed that I spoke to earlier. I've had considerable experience with them, and I think that there are big issues with it that need to be changed and made more transparent for all students to understand the actual system itself and how and why we do the things we do. In terms of student referendums, I am fully in favor of them. I believe that students need to be involved more at top-level decisions, that these are things that affect our everyday lives, and we should have a say in them, that they shouldn't be, that the university should not be making decisions without taking our thoughts and considerations and concerns into mind. I've already been introducing legislation to institute a tuition referendum. What was spoken against it was that that students wouldn't vote for a tuition increase. I don't think so. If they were given valid and good reasons for it, I believe students would agree with supporting Marquette.
That's 2 minutes? Okay, thank you. All right, yep, Meredith and Valerie. Did you guys answer that already? Oh, I'm so sorry. I messed up. For next question?
Hi, I'm Samantha Connor. I was wondering, so a lot of the conversation and procedures surrounding sexual harassment and assault right now can be only kind of specific to women and straight women especially. And so I guess I was wondering, how are you going to try and start the conversation about men who experience assault and harassment, as well as assault and harassment occurring in LGBTQ relationships?
Thank you. Erin and Joshua?
Okay. So I'm really glad you brought this up. So as it's might be common knowledge, survivors typically believe that it may just be a bad experience, or also continue self-blame, especially if coming from the male perspective. Actually, 1 in 33 males are sexually assaulted. I notice a big lack of examples of flipping the script in sexual assault or Title IX training, actually. I hope to require more male examples where females aren't always seen as the victim. Also, with sexual assault, I hope to meet with a group of students. I know Empowerment has collected some names of students who not necessarily want to be named, but want their concerns heard as far as their experiences of sexual assault. Being a survivor myself, I would really like to take the opportunity to turn my mishaps into an opportunity to really talk with these individuals that may not feel comfortable going to somebody else to say, hey, I get it, I've been there. What can we do? How do you think we can communicate how we feel to the rest of the student body so they will be able to understand us?
In general, everyone should feel that they will be heard in this issue and in all issues. But that with this one being so sensitive, it's very personal, and a lot of people don't want to come forward for various reasons. And so we need to make sure that those people are treated with the respect and dignity that they deserve, and that we are open our arms to them and say, hey, we are here for you. If you need support, if you need help, like, we are a resource for you.
If those examples aren't given in training, people may be in further denial. We need to express that sexual assault can happen to anyone, no matter what your sexual orientation is, whether you're transgender, cisgender. It can happen to anyone, and we should be able to have the resources where
That's 2 minutes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Meredith and Valerie?
So we have a twofold answer to your question. The first is just having that accessibility of information to students. So right now, while we work with the Title IX faculty advisors, they just say that a lot of students come into the office and they just have no idea how the process works. And so what we're trying to do right now is get together concise infographics for students to be had online on websites that say what happens in the Title IX reporting process, what your rights are as a victim, what happens if you were to go forward, just anonymity with certain faculty and not with others, and how things like that work. So that is the one-fold answer of the question. The second part of the question is right now for bystander training for students and for faculty in Title IX training. The examples that they have in the videos that they have in our trainings are very heteronormative. So it doesn't talk about circumstances between people of the same gender, or people who are not gender binary, or people who are part of the LGBTQ+ community. And so we're trying to show students that sexual assault and sexual harassment is something that everyone should have to care about and everyone should have to deal with. Not like in the sense that, but just that all students should care about. And so that just moves forward with different training for students. It also looks into consent training for students. That's something that I know has been a really big issue with a lot of cases on campus, is people don't necessarily know what consent means. And so regardless of what your sexual orientation is or how you identify in a gender manner, you should be able to have the resources and know that there are people around campus who understand what consent is, and you can go forward in a relationship in a healthy manner. And that includes sexual assault and sexual harassment, any type of sexual misconduct.
I guess like going off of that too, with having the sexual assault forum and Title IX forum, that was the start of a conversation, and we hope that that continues, and making sure that we do have this open dialogue with everybody, making sure that everybody knows every single side, regardless of if it's male, female, and just making sure that everybody's voice is heard.
Thank you. All right, so we have time for one more audience question, but candidates, you will have 30 seconds to answer rather than 2 minutes.
Hi, I'm Tim Rittenhouse, junior in the College of Engineering. So with the fact in mind that voter turnout in MUSG elections has been consistently low over the past few years, how do you feel that this year the MUSG communications team has done in raising awareness for MUSG elections? Thanks.
Thank you. Meredith and Valerie?
Yeah, so I can speak on this. As the communications vice president and having such a wonderful comm team, we all have been working hard to make sure that elections turnout is higher than ever, and that comes with initiatives that are coming out soon, such as hopefully having the president do something. Yeah.
Thank you. Erin and Jeff?
This is definitely an issue, especially in terms of being able to talk with the university. Having as many people come is very important. A lot of the groups that we talk to in private meetings they didn't even know that an election was really going on, that we have a lot of traditional channels that we go through, our social media and all those things, but a lot of students aren't a part of those. And so we need to do more to reach out, more to facilitate their information so that all students can know.
Beyond just social media.
Yeah, beyond just social media, that all students are
That's
aware.
30 seconds.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, audience, for your questions, and thank you, candidates, for your responses. So you will now each have 2 minutes to give closing remarks. Erin and Josh, because Meredith and Valerie gave their opening statements first, you guys will give your closing remarks first.
Okay. Ultimately, Josh and I want to be here to serve you guys. We want to unify the student body, integrate the resources we already have on campus, and with my systems engineering experience and Josh's extensive SOF experience. We believe that Senate has an outreach vice president and a communications vice president for a reason. I look forward to working with both of those positions, if elected, to integrate Marquette into the greater Milwaukee area. However, as a president, my duty is to the students first and to provide the unity and transparency that has been forsaken in the years past.
And Erin and I are not interested in being just a pep rally presidency. We want to dig deep on all of the issues that, and try to tackle all of the issues that students really struggle with in day-to-day life, from the financials to the social issues, and that these issues are too often overlooked by MUSG, for whether it's by accident or by us not wanting to bring up some of these issues. And so we want to challenge both MUSG and the university to look more into the students' issues.
Our goal on Tuesday is not to have people to come out and vote for us. It's to get excited about student government and vote and increase their participation, and continue this excitement to be motivated to maintain communication with us throughout the year so we can work together and provide a more efficient streamline of communication so we can address the issues in a more timely manner. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Erin and Josh. Meredith and Valerie?
Val and I are just so excited to be able to have this opportunity to run for such an incredible position, and we would be honored to serve the student body. And we can honestly promise that regardless of whatever is on our platform, this candidacy and this potential presidency and vice presidency is not just about us. It's about what students want. And we're really, really excited to represent every angle, every side of the Marquette student body. We're both very passionate about MUSG, and we think that the internal parts of MUSG can be improved, but ultimately this is about the student experience, and we're ready to be transparent with those students and connect with those students in a way that hasn't been connected before. There's a very large disconnect between students and MUSG, and that's unfortunate right now, and we're really, really excited to be a part of that changing culture. So thank you so much for coming out, and we, regardless of what happens tomorrow, we're really, really excited to continue changing that culture in some way in Marquette.
Thank you. All right, thank you both. Could we get a round of applause for the candidates, please? Right, thank you. This has been the 2018 Marquette University Student Government and Executive Vice Presidential Debate. We hope this has helped to inform your vote and remind you that elections take place Tuesday, March 27th. Polls will be open from 12 a.m. to 10 p.m. Thank you. Good night.